Welcome everyone to our Future of Tech in CU panel. This is, I believe, the third, if someone wants to correct me, in a series of Future of Technology in Champaign-Urbana. Thank you so much to the Pygmalion Festival, to the City of Champaign for supporting these kinds of events. We think that it's great for us to get out into the community, to get out into for some of us, get out of our offices and get out from behind our computers and engage with one another and talk about what's really going on across the community, and not just in certain pockets, but all over the place in Champaign-Urbana as it relates to technology. And my name is Laura Bleill. I am the Associate Director of the Research Park. Thanks to all the Research Park. If you work in the Research Park, please raise your hand. Not that I could see you, but everyone else could see you. So, all right. So thanks to a great showing tonight from our Research Park community, so we appreciate that. But of course, as I mentioned, we want to be inclusive of lots of folks from across the community, especially for this event, because I think that one of the things that we really aspired to when we talked about what this topic would be and what does it mean is that AgTech is really not about just one area of Champaign-Urbana. It's not about the University of Illinois. It's not about the Research Park. It's not even about Parkland. It's all about all of us, and the partnerships and the collegiality that we've been developing across this community, I think, is something that's a little bit hidden. And I feel like, and many of us have felt like, that what's going on here in AgTech is actually probably better known outside of our community than it is even known inside. So one of the things that we wanted to do tonight is to really kind of lift the curtain, so to speak, on one of the best kept secrets here in Champaign-Urbana, to highlight some of our successes, what's happened in AgTech so far, to look at our challenges, and to think about what might be coming next. So without further ado, I am going to allow some of my colleagues and friends up here introduce themselves, and I'm going to hand the mic. So we'll do quick introductions and then we'll jump into questions. So happy to welcome Landon. So Landon, take it away.
All right, thank you. This mic works?
Yes.
Cool, very good. I am Landon Frye. Nice to be here with the Pygmalion Festival and having this AgTech event. I grew up on a farm, so I'm a farm kid, and aspired to be in agriculture in my career. I think being a sixth-generation family farmer, it was something to build off of, and what my family has done over, being corn, soybean, popcorn farmers in Havana, Illinois, about 2 hours straight west of Champaign. Was a student here at the University of Illinois in agriculture finance. Went to work for a bank, farm credit for a couple years, but really saw a few things happening in agriculture technology, from 2010 to 2013 that made sense to get into AgTech. And so have been with Granular, which is a company in the Research Park, for 4.5 years. Was one of the early salesmen of our farm management software across the Midwest. We were fortunate enough, we opened an office in Champaign in the fall of 2015. Being a San Francisco-based venture capital-backed agricultural technology startup that started in 2014. So put our second headquarters here in Champaign up to 65 employees. And right now I work with our Acre Value product line, which is the Zillow for farmland, and lead up our sales and customer success efforts. So good to be here.
Lena?
I'm Lena Head. I'm the site director of the AGCO Acceleration Center in Research Park. Similar story to Landon in some regards. I grew up on a farm in central Illinois and live on a farm today. I had aspirations to continue after my education at the University of Illinois and stay in agriculture, and I joined GSI, which is a global manufacturer of grain bins. They are owned by AGCO, hence kind of how I got into the AGCO space. But AGCO is a global manufacturer of tractors and many other implements as well. So in that space, we are going in about 12 different directions, I would say, at a minimum. And we are really trying to figure out what that means for us here in Research Park. And it's been a great experience to kind of take in the tech community of the other organizations here and kind of figure out what that means to us as a corporate agribusiness.
Jenny.
My name is Jenny Fridgen. I am the Ag Program Director at Parkland College. My background, I grew up on a family farm as well down in southeast Missouri. I went to college at Mississippi State to get a master's degree in agronomy with a background in chemistry. So my original goal was to be a soil chemist. And I fell in love with teaching when I was down at State as a grad student, and then this opportunity at Parkland opened up after I spent about 10 years in the precision ag industry sector. And so I'm honored to be at Parkland. It's a great community college. We are really revamping our precision ag program. It's been in existence for well over 20 years now, and last fall we released the Midwest Precision Ag Center. And so we are working with and looking for industry partners that will continue to work with us to prepare our students for the next generation of AgTech.
Kaustubh.
Hi, my name is Kaustubh Bhalerao. I'm an associate professor at U of I in the Ag and Biological Engineering program. I came here in 2005, and I initially worked on biotechnology and nanotechnology and that kind of stuff. And after I made tenure, I figured I wanted to do something real. So I looked around and I saw, that we had some interesting challenges in the Midwest agricultural space, and so kind of jumped right in. 2014, end of 2014, I started a startup called Soil Diagnostics, and we make soil tests for growers that can help them save on fertilizer costs. And it's been a couple years in the making now. And so that's been nice. So I still have my position at U of I. Now my wife took over the business, so she owns it. So I'm just here as a representative of both U of I and of Soil Diagnostics now.
So are you telling me we asked the wrong person to be on this panel?
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Laura, for inviting me here.
Well, actually, I do think, though, that there is something to that. And I think that there's one of the things that I hope that you all will come away from this is that there's a lot of fluidity in this industry between who is working on what, between startups, corporations, industry partnerships, Parkland. Many of you might not have expected that Parkland would be sitting on this panel, but actually Parkland has really distinguished itself as a nationwide leader in precision ag. So basically, I want to get to my first question, though, is what some people might be wondering is, what is AgTech and why should anyone care about it? And I'm actually looking at you, Kaustubh, to start that one, since
Okay.
you already have the mic.
We can answer this question in multiple ways. So obviously, every one of us has tech in their pockets now. These pieces of computers are far more powerful than the entire Apollo mission. And it makes sense that there are problems in agriculture that we need to solve, and applying technology to those problems. And today, technology is sort of synonymous with hardware, software, and even biotechnology for ag. And can we use these problems to make farmers' lives better? Can we use it to make our environment cleaner? Can we use it to produce more of the kinds of foods we want to eat? So that's the applications of technology as I see it personally. So there are big problems out there. The world's getting richer. The world's demanding more food, more high-quality, nutritious food. There are going to be more people, no matter which graph you believe, and we're going to have to do that on increasingly constrained resources. And so that's the challenge. So can we use technology to increase our own productivity and therefore the sustainability of this planet? That's what our role is as people trying to solve problems in AgTech.
I ditto that, and I look at it from the ag industry, or from the educational portion of our students that are going out into the ag industry, and those are the ones that are right now need to be the ones that are advocating that message. And so it's important for us to be all on the same page so that the students have that message that they can start conveying as they go out and work with growers or they work with the public more. So it's very important for us to stay focused on the sustainability, focused on educating the students and using that technology to better what we have.
And I would echo what both of them said. From a corporate perspective, it's definitely about the additional 2 billion people that are going to join us by 2050. But from the farmers' perspective, it's really about how can they control margins in their business, how can they reduce input costs, what can make their lives easier and more efficient. So there's definitely two, angles to the problem that I see.
Cool. I think it's good. It's good.
Landon's got the answer.
Well, I mean, historically, AgTech, we went from subsistence farming to the first big piece was mechanization. Most of it happened in the last century. Mechanization to hybrid corn, the green revolution, adding fertilizers, pesticides, chemicals, increase yields, 2x again. Then we saw GMOs and, additional genetics come into the forefront. And then I think the last aspect of old AgTech, what most people think when I hear AgTech is, precision agriculture, being able to do things with machinery and a little bit of computing power. But what has changed the most, I think, is how widespread AgTech is involved in. Now the mechanization aspect is going to turn to automation, robotics, and not maybe needing a huge labor force in there that will take some time. When we see hybrid corn to GMOs now getting onto the CRISPR technology and customizing the genetics at a much higher rate than needing to grow it out in the field for 6, 7, 8 years at a time. And then what's most different about AgTech as kind of looking forward and as an opportunity is as it relates, I think, to food tech. I mean, the biggest trend that we see is how much we care about where our food comes from. That's probably changed in the last 20 years, looking at precision agriculture to, the biggest Super Bowl ad being, we want our beer with
Corn
or without
syrup.
corn syrup. I chose Coors Light this evening.
How many of you know if your beer has corn syrup?
I do.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Okay,
Coors
good.
does, yeah.
Coors does.
Okay,
Miller
Miller Coors
Coors
has
does.
corn syrup, which is very important to those of us in the Midwest that care about corn. Okay, so along those lines, we grow a lot of corn and soybeans around here, and so we want to localize AgTech for you. And AgTech, and Landon alluded to this, AgTech is there's AgTech, there's food tech. My question to you guys in one moment will be, why is Champaign-Urbana primed to be an AgTech hub? And just a quick commercial is that some of you got postcards on your seats that the Research Park is hosting our annual AgTech Innovation Summit. So some of the things that you're hearing about today, if you want to spend a whole day learning about those, come join us on March 6th. But Landon, why do you think that Champaign-Urbana, and what distinguishes our AgTech hub potentially from others?
Yeah, I think quick history lesson. Champaign's always been the AgTech hub. Going from the reason universities exist, land grant institutions. Again, subsistence farming was 90% of all workforce in the 1850s. So the land grant institution existed to train farmers about technology, to bring all of the scientific revolution to agriculture and the food system. And the early roots of that started in Champaign. And so we've seen that grow up over 150 years. What we have in Champaign now is that foundation of the research, the education, but even in the last 2 or 3 years, a spark plug of people in a community of varying degrees of early stage non-backed VCs, of corporate incumbent, data science plays, and a few really, really cool ones that have grown up here. And leveraging the people is going to be really important to grow it further.
You guys want to take that question? Anyone else?
I'll take it. So I think one of the big reasons why U of I or Champaign-Urbana region is an AgTech hub is because of Laura. Okay, and the research park. I think the research park is understated in its impact, and it's actually my favorite part of this whole thing. Okay, I mean, thank you for inviting me, but no, I think, it really brings an element of commitment and an element of bringing people together that as a faculty member, I value that a whole lot, and I don't get to do enough of that kind of stuff. So it's actually really important, and the reason that research park serves as a catalyst is because of their commitment to bring ideas, people together to drive this area forward. So I think that's one of the best reasons out there.
Oh wait, she wants more. So I think for me, it's actually the combination of, like Landon said, it's a land grant school. We are in the heartland of America, and you have that combination of your grassroots farm kids that can really be cross-functionally integrated with the, one of the top 10 computer science and computer engineering schools here. For us in our operation and research park, that's one of the biggest benefits we've seen, to give them that foundational knowledge of people who have lived that life and combine it with the technical aspects of people who don't, is something that really is where the magic happens for us.
Thank you, Kaustubh. We kind of along those lines, actually, I feel like for AgTech to thrive here, strong partnerships are needed across, whether it's higher education, whether it's our corporate partners, startups, et cetera. So I'm curious if any of you want to talk about some of those concrete examples, and I'm gonna give Jenny the mic first to talk about some concrete examples of how the higher education community is partnering with industry beyond Research Park.
Yes, so what's very vital to the students that are graduating, whether it's from the U of I or from Parkland College, our main goal is to have our students, when they walk out the door, to not be behind. So it's important for us, for students, to learn what's going on in the industry today, what's not what is happening or what has happened, but when they walk out the door, it's important for them to know what software is out there, who are these industry partners that they can go work for, or if they need to continue their education at the U of I or some other entity if they choose that. When I was in the industry, I'll tell you a quick story. We always had interns that came in, and I was with one of my salesmen, and his comment to me was, when the interns came in, he would always say, "Okay, now let the education begin." And so for me, what makes me thrive is that when students walk out our college, they go out industry ready. They have learned the fundamentals that they need, and it's up to the Granulars and the AGCOs and them to train them internally to some extent. But without partnerships with the U of I, even without the outside of the research park, it's important for those partnerships to be strong so that our students are ready when they walk out the door to hit the ground running.
Well, Lena, you kind of alluded to this a little bit, and one of our favorite panels at the AgTech Summit is where we ask growers to come, and so people outside of the research park community or the corporate community or whatever, but essentially people who are part of our community fabric and who are familiar with adapting new technologies. So we wanted to know, what is the grower's perspective on adapting new technology, and how does profitability come into play?
So I think as it relates to our business, and like say from the corporate perspective and even from the farmer's perspective, it's really about productivity, whether it can reduce labor. A lot of the new farmers in the new generation are very receptive to technology, and in fact they have a lot of ideas. They just don't exactly know how to go about implementing them. They're going to need more ag tech companies and more individuals with those technical skills who can help execute those ideas, as long as it is either going to bring them A, more profitability, or B, make them more productive or reduce labor. They're all on board with it from my perspective.
So how many of you are farmers? Okay. So you'll back me up or throw rocks, whatever it is. If I say farmers really haven't made any money since the 60s. Okay, the Kansas City Fed will back me up on this one, but I think profitability is one that that we've ignored for the grower. Okay, I mean, we've got labor saving, we've got lots of new technology, but I think there's been something missing here. And this is not a Midwest thing, this is a global thing. Farmers really haven't, farmers really haven't made a whole bunch of money. And I think as much as we're part of this AgTech thing, I think we've only taken the first few halting steps towards seeing a much different kind of agriculture going out into the future. Okay, today's reality is the average farmer is 60 years old. Okay, the only assets that they have is that their land values have appreciated. They've made money on about 4 out of 10 years. The last time they made money was in 2012, which was a drought year. Okay, this is if we talk about ag profitability, these are the harsh realities, and that's kind of what we should be moving towards with our next generation of ag tech startups. Don't have all the answers, but sorry, that's the reality.
Yeah, profitability is the hardest part, and finding a way to ensure that if a farm makes an upfront investment of $20,000 or $40,000 or $60,000, that there is a way to get a return on that in the first year or two. The reason it's really hard to prove that is the iteration process is a year long, and any given farmer, Warren Buffett's son, Howard Buffett, has written a lot about this. He has a 4,000 acre farm down the road in Decatur and is working on sustainability efforts in Arizona and Africa. And his concept is kind of the idea of 40 chances. A farmer has 40 chances, from the age they're 25 to 65 to grow a crop as productively as they can. And to take a risk of perhaps the entire net income of a 1,000 or 2,000 acre farm on new technology is a challenge. So typically where AgTech struggles is wanting the large upfront investment right off the bat, not having all of the vetted out, proven returns that take 2 or 3 times to try out. And that is to say they're very good at technology. They will try very small instances of what they know for sure gets a return. Better seed, different chemical pesticide programs, fertilizer applications, a more efficient machine that can run over more acres, very tried and true things that have existed as the primary ag tech over the last century. So being able to kind of make it in a more bite-sized manner and prove it quicker is the challenge I think we all have in getting adoption to increase and figure that out.
So along those lines, I think that it might be surprising to some people, maybe not the people in this audience, but maybe if those of people who watch this it's being recorded, so if you did want to watch this later or tell your friends. Some of those people might be surprised about the types of technologies that are being deployed by farmers in the ag field, by ag companies. So actually, I think I said I was going to start with Jenny, but I'm actually going to start with Lena because I think this is probably one of the knock your socks off stories. But what are those technologies that are being deployed that might surprise people that probably never thought that there may have been an application in the ag industry? Yes.
So I think what she's alluding to is in our business and out of our office in Research Park, we've started experimenting with augmented reality. So if you're familiar with virtual reality, it's basically, in my personal opinion, a better version of that. It's combining pieces of real life with augmented virtual pieces into one. So it's something that we have actually employed kind of at the corporate level as a sales tool, to be honest. We manufacture grain bins and large pieces of equipment that are, bigger than this building. And to help a farmer really envision what that site's going to look like on his farm, it's been an invaluable tool. Like Landon alluded to, they only have 40 chances to make their mark. And when you're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment in equipment to potentially pay off, you really have to make sure it's what you want. So it's really helped us from the envisionment standpoint with the farmer individuals. It's helped the dealers kind of have that competitive edge and elevate themselves to a more professional standard. But in addition to that, it's really helped the farmer make sure they're getting what they want. When they can actually see it in more than just a 3D drawing and they can see it on their farm, they start really thinking about, oh, when my semis come in, that's actually not the best route I want them to take. I think I would reconfigure this a little bit differently. And so that's one of kind of the neat things we've been working on here in Research Park with some of the student interns at the University of Illinois and some of our corporate business partners.
I think from the ag technology standpoint, what would surprise most people is just actually how technology advanced growers are. You know, we see on commercials all the time, the automobile industry is so proud of themselves for having self-driving cars, where our tractors have been doing that for years. When we go out and talk to students about the technology that we have, there are people that are actually surprised tractors will drive themselves. You can sit in it and not touch the steering wheel, and that just blows people away that that's technology. We all have iPhones, or I don't want to promote Apple, but you know, iPhones or Samsungs or whatever. But you know, growers have those in their tractors and combines. And I mean, I'm talking from the simplistic. To me, that's simplistic of technology that you know everybody has now, but growers have been using it to better. And I mean, that's great from that standpoint too. I mean, the advancements that we have. But if you think of outside of this room, if you're not from an ag background or have an ag you know interest, then to me those are some of the simple things that are most people don't realize.
So I have something that blew my socks off anyway. One of the nice things about being at an internationally renowned university here is that I can sort of call up people around the globe and talk to them about what they're doing. And this gentleman I spoke to from my hometown in India, he runs a group called the Abhinav Farm Club. This is 184,000 farmers in one city that have 1 to 2 hectares each. So a hectare is roughly 2.5 acres. Very small holding farmers. They're producing salad crops fully organically. Both husband and wife work on the farm. They work 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening, tilling the soil, weeding, all the kind of stuff that they have to do on the farm. In the afternoons, they package all the produce, they grade it, package it, box it in clamshells, and then they sell this in 7,500 retail locations around the city. And their daughters go to college, and then they drive the trucks to transport all this salad, fresh salad. People pay a subscription fee to buy this stuff, and they do this with an iPhone app. Right? That kind of blew my socks off. And this is, we're talking about India. And I think this is kind of a very heartening trend to see. Like, as we start demanding more salads and more convenience foods, we're going to actually want more people being so involved with the production and quality control of our food, right? So the vision I have is that farming is going to become a lot more interesting as a profession, as a career to people, because we're demanding more food, because we're demanding different kinds of food. And so that, to me, is my blow your socks off kind of story.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would, on the driver, you know, self-driving tractors, it is awesome to be able to go home. And when I used to do tillage work in college, I mean, you'd have to keep the wheel and just be laser focused all day to drive up and down the row. But now every time I go back, it's like I grab a book, I make sure my phone is charged, I read every single line of Twitter over 10 hours, a bunch of podcasts downloaded, and it is, you know, if you get through all that, it's quite boring because there's nothing to do in the tractor. So soon we'll all have self-driving Teslas, and that'll be a big step to apply that to our everyday lives. But I think that goes to say that there are a large part of, you know, ag tech and agriculture that gets technology way before everyone else, 10 to 20 years. One thing we are working on at Granular is, I think we just launched it today. We had a version of it out last year, but we've partnered with Planet Labs and have Planet Labs, I think, has a couple hundred, maybe 2,000 very small satellites taking images in real time. And every grower who works with us, a couple thousand, on their phone every day, they have all their fields and can see a brand new image coming across. We add in some optimization for crop health imagery to know where to go, scout, but Google Earth was an awesome thing, but now having daily satellite images is super high tech and something that probably wouldn't be available to any consumer use case here for a while even.
So one of the things that we wanted people to understand is that this community is enriched in many ways, by our AgTech partners, by our industry partners, through higher education, through the students that are coming here. But really, one of the things that I think we hear the most, and actually I didn't hear you guys say this about when we were talking about why is Champaign-Urbana an AgTech hub, is that we're surrounded by farms. I mean, so we have people who are developing technology, yes, but not only are they developing the technology, they can literally walk outside, their door and drive a couple miles, if that, to get a read on how is that actually going to work. And so you made a comment about, how the semis go in or whatever. So it's not just about, cycles of seasons. There's a lot of different parts of this equation that make things work. But I guess that's also something that I want to make a challenge to all of you, is to think of, sometimes we do think of ourselves as maybe the city that's an oasis among the farms, but really it's the farms around us that are enriching our community just as much. And so one of the things I wanted to address is our workforce here, and how is the workforce here, the people here, whether they have university connections or whether they're from farms or whatnot, how are those people an asset to advancing this community forward in AgTech, in this sector, through all of these areas? And I think I was going to start with Landon first on that one. So
cool. Yeah, we can dive into that specifically. That was the reason we came here. Was we had a technology talent at our main headquarters in San Francisco. I was based in town selling the software, but it was very apparent early on that we were building complex business management and analytics software and needed to have the service and support and the training to help farmers kind of get over the hump of the learning curve. So, of course, Champaign with the University of Illinois, the smartest farm kids to use tech and understand how to communicate it best to growers across North America, made this a very obvious place to put down roots. We were also had a couple advisors who were on staff at the faculty at the College of ACES, Ag Economics, who have acted as strategic thought leaders for us and connectors into taking, I think they thought a lot about this in theory with their work over the years, but it hasn't been able to be applied until really recently with the advent of mobile technology and cloud software and the amount of data processing that we can do. And they want to have their hands in the execution of some of the ideas they've had the last few years. So faculty, students, obviously the farms being close, we're really fortunate to have customers, quite a few customers within an hour or two, and they love coming to our office, getting training, kind of seeing a cool technology, based startup type office. And then what happened, because we chose Champaign, the tech talent in town, the computer science development that has already been established here for a couple decades, going back to the 90s, obviously. We were able to find that. I think I did a count. We at one point about 18 months ago, I think we just had one more software engineer in San Francisco than we did in Champaign. And so we're able to really build that team here. And then what is cool once that happens is the folks who know what farming's like, how the customers are going to use it, are sitting right next to the folks building it, and the learning process to ship innovative products that add value to people becomes even faster, which is why Champaign has been super valuable for us.
Speaking of workforce, we often hear, and I think Lena alluded to this earlier, that one of the biggest challenges for agriculture as a whole, and for this whole idea of that we have too 2 billion more people, is that right? That we need to feed across the world. Is that, okay, well, one of those things, of course, is we have limited fields, but bigger than that is labor issues. And so how, is there a way that our community specifically, through the work that's being done here, can address labor shortages as it relates to farming moving forward and to agriculture, and how we can maybe address some of those challenges? Who did I ask to start? Kaustubh?
Yeah, I can take it. So first of all, we have to understand that ag is not a low-tech job. It is a high-tech, high-knowledge, high-intensity job. That where and we have to also think about ag as 3 separate things. Most of what we see around here is the industrial ag, right? It's the corn and beans. And there is a very definite trend. AGCO is going to replace them with driving tractors all throughout. And that trend is pretty much completely visible. Okay, we can see where that's headed. Animal agriculture is yet another thing. As we demand more and more animal products, meat, milk, and eggs, we're going to have to produce that somewhere. And we've lost a lot of that animal agriculture here in central Illinois. But that doesn't mean that if you drive 2 hours north, just north of I-80, we still have that industry is alive and well. As a professor, I have projects in animal ag as well. We're working on the breeding side for sows, and that is an incredibly knowledge-intensive area. What I try to convince my students is this is an IT job. This is not, I mean, they're like, well, why am I in ag engineering? I don't want to be a farmer. No, this is an IT job. There is a lot of very difficult decision making, a lot of sophisticated software decisions. Farmers today are affected more by what happens in Brazil than what happens in their field, right? They've become day traders. They're trying to get decisions on when to sell and things like that based on daily prices. And this is, you have to appreciate the complexity of this whole process before we can kind of say, oh, it's a farmer's job. There's a lot more going on there. And I think one of our biggest challenges is to get students to look at this as an opportunity and say, well, this is kind of fun. This is something where their innovation and intuition and experience and the ability to wrangle large amounts of data is actually going to be valuable, that they can make good money doing this kind of stuff. So that's kind of been my sort of standard focus. And what I do is, like, I point to the 12 companies, ag-related companies in the research park, and say, they can't be wrong. They're here to hire you guys. You guys need to know something about what they're doing. And so that's kind of how we try to play that off.
I think just to build off of that, like you said, the desire for animal protein is going to quadruple in the near future, which means we're going to need 2 times as much grain to feed all of those animals. And so it is a real concern and something that we all have to be aware of. Honestly, the issue of kind of, I guess, ag education is something, a big reason why our company's here. To attract people to join agriculture companies that didn't grow up on farms is kind of a stretch to begin with, unless you have a really fancy startup-looking office like Granular. Little simpler then. But for us, it's really largely about education. A lot of the students we bring into our office have no ag background and generally no interest. They're just happy to have a job. And by the end of it, they're like, wow, I never knew that was so technologically advanced, that there's so much data, that farmers don't wear overalls every day, and every other stereotype. So it is largely an educational piece to teach them how different it is. And just from bringing them to their first, North American farm and meeting a farmer is a big piece of bridging that gap. But the labor shortage when it comes to, on farm is going to continue to be something that plays into it. Our company hosted a hackathon this past weekend, and someone had the idea to basically make the Uber of semi-drivers. And semi-drivers, if you're familiar with it, there's a labor shortage for those individuals and that skill. And if those people, can be more attracted to that market by being able to drive whenever they want and get increased fares when demand is high, maybe we'll see an increase of desires to go into that field. So I think technology is going to continue to play a big role in that. But I think at the base level, ag education is going to be a big piece of kind of trying to fill that talent pipeline to continue moving forward.
We have a hard time filling that pipeline. We have calls all the time for students, needing students, and we don't have them. We'll take all the students we can get, but I think the education goes beyond just bringing those students in. One of the things that we struggle with is the stigmatism of that a farmer's is the overalls. As Lena said, it's not. It's the parents as well that don't have the education to realize that ag is truly a very good field to work in. I mentioned to a lot of students, we get a lot of 7th and 8th graders coming in to Parkland for career exploration. If you have had it at the iHotel and you've participated in it, one of the questions I always ask is, how many are you involved in agriculture? Usually the schools are from Champaign-Urbana. None of them raise their hand, and I ask every one of them, did you not eat today, or do you not have clothes on your back? Are you all sitting here naked? No, every one of us are involved in agriculture in some way or another, and so we need to break that stigmatism so that we can recruit, so that we can help fill the pipeline for them. One of my industry partners told me out of 500 employees that he manages, in the next 2 years, he's going to lose probably half of those due to retirement. There's no way we can fill that amount of, and that's just one company in one area. That doesn't include as large as AGCO and Granular are. And so it's very important for us to continue to push and keep the AgTech out there and the agriculture just in general, so that we can have students.
So do you have any ideas of how to address that?
No. If I did, we would have a lot of students. It's hard.
We need to get the ag engineering or ag tech students learn Python and pay them $125,000 in Champaign. See how many will show up, right?
I'll take that job.
Okay, there's a challenge. I think some of our Python-loving friends might not be here tonight. So, Landon, did you want to add anything to that?
How do we fix it? Yeah, I think there's two sides of it. There's the operational farm side, which when I talk with farms in Illinois or the Midwest, like it comes harvest time, we don't have enough people to drive a truck or a tractor or a combine, and that's just a tougher challenge. I think if someone can figure that out, it'll be valuable, because it is seasonal. It's not something that has a large opportunity in winter or summer to continue that work, but the Uberization of it seems like a possibility. How can we use technology to turn out demand in those seasons where, yeah, if an Uber driver could drive a combine, I mean, it's a high-paying job. Farms would pay quite a bit of money per hour, probably above an Uber driver rate to figure that out, but it comes with skills to learn everything that's going on in the cab. On the other side, I would say perhaps more of the folks who work full-time in ag, it is, it's not 100% farm kids or maybe even 50%, a passion for solving some of these world food challenges. And I do think that has gotten a lot more popular. People care about it more and are finding their way into the agriculture industry. I don't think it's as much of a challenge. I could be wrong. I think, starting to call it, it is the food system, food tech, because agriculture does tend to sound a little more bibs and overall-y than perhaps.
Do we have anyone wearing overalls tonight? I can't tell. I forgot mine at home. Well, I think as a community, how do we need to be looking at this to get more people engaged? So we certainly have, people like Landon and Lena. I mean, but you guys are from, what, an hour? You said 2 hours away, an hour away. So what do we need to be doing as a community? Parkland, I'm going to look at you, Jenny, for this, but also and Kaustubh, what do we need to be doing as a community to engage more people so that we can grow as an ag tech hub, and so that we can grow the resources that are needed to build this industry here in Champaign-Urbana?
Continue just to educate the community and involve the community. continue to work with the farm bureaus and starting at a younger age. We talk about the labor, so we're all from ag, right? When ag's in you, it's in you. It's always a part of you. But for someone that didn't grow up in that community, that's hard. And so how we can do that is we can continue to work with our community and educate and not just from my standpoint of recruiting students for a pipeline of employees, but just as in general for those folks that aren't going to continue on or go out and work, but how can we all work together to relay that message and to have that unified message that this career is important, these jobs are important, this community is sustained on agriculture and started on agriculture, as all communities did, right? That was our fundamental. At one point, they were hunters and gatherers, and that's one thing I teach in my classes. That's what they started out with. Now, how different are we today? We're still doing the same type of things, and so just a continuation of education beyond just what our interests are for getting an employee or getting a student is how I see one of the things we need to do.
So this is crazy. Let's ask the community. What do you want to do in ag?
No, I just want to give praise to Parkland College and University of Illinois for offering the training for those who want to be entrepreneurs in the AgTech community, especially just stuff like how do I fly a drone, how do I do coding and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the services here in Urbana, Champaign, to be able to do that. And also trying how can we promote just kind of what the simple services, like where do I go where my drone breaks or where my tractor breaks.
Right.
Just stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, for that kind of stuff, I mean, the specific things that you mentioned, I'd go to YouTube. I would go to YouTube, right? I know, but but what we want to really, what we're really talking about is we need to create hundreds, thousands of jobs in a place like Champaign in order to truly elevate its status as an AgTech hub, right? I mean, that should be our challenge. It's not like, how do we get the next startup funded? It should be, how do we create thousands of new jobs in Champaign? Because that's the kind of magnitude that we will have to disrupt this whole place with to get people to really wake up and say, when did this happen? Right? And how do we get there? That's the hard part. I mean, I think that there's some real trends out there, right? We need more food. We need different kinds of food today. And we aren't eating the corn and beans directly, right? So that it's going through another animal or something like that. But that's a trend that we could essentially bank on. And there are some, it'll take a lot more glasses of that to make me talk more about that. But, that's really what we should be looking to. That, we're trying to figure out this conundrum is like, how do we get thousands more people working in ag in the Midwest? Like, farmers is 2% of the population. Why are we kind of trying to make our businesses work on 2% of the population? We should be working on a much greater proportion of people, if we are trying to succeed in sort of the startup space and so on. And that means every consumer needs to be more actively involved in the whole process of producing food. And that's really where that growth will come from. Don't have all the answers, but I think that's what we should shoot for.
Yeah, and that trend is occurring. I think there's probably very few $500 million exits left in AgTech right now. There really wasn't that many that occurred. There's probably also very few new companies who are going to beat Cargill or ADM or Bayer. It could happen. I think there's a couple players coming up, Indigo, FBN, a few of those. But agriculture, I think, has always been fairly localized. Certainly a large part of it is a commodity business. And I think, there's always a concept called the dog bone in agriculture. So you got one side of farming that is larger farms. A large farm is 2,000 acres or more. And they're concentrated on their low-cost producers, corn, soybeans, commodities. On the other side of the dog bone is a lot of 300 and I'm talking like tens of thousands of 300 to 1,200 acre farms. Existing in the middle there is kind of hard. And so what I have noticed over the last 5 years is the folks who are going to be low-cost producers who make the corn and the soy and the commodities that go into all kinds of ingredients need to be operationally efficient. Their margins are really low. But what's happening at the other side of the dog bone is really cool as well, because they're starting to get, they have more time to be creative, to perhaps grow organic corn, to perhaps have a herd of cattle that is grass-fed and they're selling it to restaurants in Chicago. And there are a large number of opportunities to have a bigger part of the value chain, to go from farm to table, which is a common term. And one way we could look at that is, I think an easy example is the number of breweries in America. You know, it was 4,000 in 1850, got down to like 7 maybe in the 80s and 90s, and is now back up over 4,000. So what does that look like if that's other types of food, other restaurant experiences? That all, I think, is changing very rapidly. And if Champaign or an opportunity exists to be an AgTech hub of some sort, I think it's around food. It might be around a lot of little small things around specific ingredients, animal, crop products, vegetables, fruit, etc.
So this year, for the first time, I mentioned the AgTech Summit. Earlier, for the first time at the AgTech Summit, of course, most of our focus has been around corn and soybeans, issues related to precision ag for, you know, large-scale growers in the Midwest related to those concepts. This year, actually, we will have an animal health and nutrition panel, and Lena will be on it, so thank you, Lena. But it really will discuss this issue of how is protein coming into it, so into the picture and into what we're doing here more broadly, so that gives a little bit more of a well-rounded picture of, yes, corn and soybeans are important, don't get me wrong, but adding into the mix a little bit more information about animal health and nutrition. So kind of along those lines is, what else might be missing that we're not talking about here tonight, or we haven't addressed here tonight, that's one of the missing, shall I say, ingredients that we could use more of around here to help advance this community in the ag tech space? And all of you are grabbing the microphone, so I'm passing.
So Amazon bought Whole Foods. Need I say more? That is a huge signal, bigger than anything else that has happened. And that importance shouldn't be, we shouldn't understate that importance, right? They're turning Whole Foods into this self-service delivery thing, and there's more things going on there in that space. So what do they see that we're missing here, right? It's a rhetorical question. But the world's richest company, world's richest person is actually investing in the food processing, the food chain. And they want to be involved with things that we do 3 times a day, right? That's a big thing. That's something that we probably should discuss more. It is that the food trend is changing. Our people are demanding different kind of food, and I think that's something that's quite diametrically different from the kinds of ag that we've kind of started developing our startups and things like that around. So, and this is a global phenomenon. My Uber cab driver from Pune to the airport in India was telling me how he doesn't like the kinds of fruits that are sold on the side of the street, and he prefers a certain vendor. Like, this guy doesn't make a whole lot of money, right? But he had a choice. He was aware that his food product, there's a quality difference between what he's getting. He wasn't shopping at Walmart. He was shopping on the side of a street, and he was aware of the quality difference that he was buying, right? And so that awareness is absolutely global. If we want to be that hub, we got to be able to address a global agricultural supply chain, right? I mean, this is different from the sort of local community thing that we're doing, but that's what's going to make us the center of the universe when it comes to ag tech, right? And being aware that our food trends are changing, we have to do more with less, and we have to do it on a background where farmers don't make a whole lot of money.
Yeah, in terms of what could we do more of here in Champaign-Urbana, and going off of the career opportunities and just a couple simple observations I've had, I think the ability to transmit some of this technology, this idea, these ideas that we have, and connect it with the urban community. I've noticed we just moved offices to across the street. We're right by the iHotel, and I've found myself going over to the iHotel a little bit more recently. I think without ag companies renting out iHotel space, no one would ever go to the iHotel.
Does anybody here work for the iHotel?
Every single time I've been over there, all the spaces, ag companies, ag banks, sometimes they're local, sometimes they're from Northern Illinois, sometimes they're from Missouri. I mean, you might as well make it a WeWork of ag production. And so I
The
know
wheels are turning, Landon.
What?
The wheels are turning.
So what would that look like if there was a perhaps more of a permanent location to have meetings, have somewhat, the companies are fairly competitive, so I don't know how much collaboration could go on there, but if farmers could come, perhaps it was a community effort in some fashion. I think that would be interesting off of a recent observation I've had.
Well, there is an effort to expand the conference space at the iHotel, and to make sort of more of a retreat kind of like setting. That's something that we have asked for specifically from the research park.
Call it the barn.
The barn. We've actually, kind of along those lines, we've actually asked for, if any of you are familiar, this is total inside baseball, but in our master plan, we've asked for a lot of more ag-themed sort of to designate the research park in sort of that ag theme, although, of course, we have many different domains across, but yes, we've heard. So, great idea. One of the things that we haven't talked about, and I'm going to address this question to you, Jenny, is sort of some of the other assets that we have here in Champaign-Urbana that people aren't really maybe aware of, is how they're impacting the ag community. And so what I'm specifically alluding to is the program that Parkland runs at the airport, and how that impacts your operations. And I know we have some friends here that may be interested in aerial imagery and how it impacts agriculture, so I'm giving you all a shout out there. But I'd love to hear, Jenny, from your perspective of how what we have here and the assets that we have here can impact that.
Sure. Yes, so I'm sure everybody knows Parkland College now has the Institute of Aviation, and with that has allowed us to open up our UAS aspect. So we have a UAS certificate that right now is 2 courses. It is being expanded as we speak. Mandy Briggs, one of my counterparts, works on a grant with myself. She is heading up another grant for UAS specifically. And so her and I are going to do some workshops this summer from the standpoint of not just flying a drone, but from actually capturing imagery and what do you do with the imagery. So when you look at it from the standpoint of what the aviation has brought to Parkland and to the community, we've really opened up that avenue as well. So when you're looking for a place to get your drone fixed, we have that place, and we have a place where you can bring your tractor and get it fixed through our diesel program. But from the Institute of Aviation, I mean, that's been a really good thing for Parkland College, especially from the UAS standpoint. We're becoming more widely known for that across the nation. We bring in through our business training. Last year, I believe we trained over 500 industry folks to receive their Part 107, and now with that going into starting its 3rd year within the FAA, we've opened that up to where now it's the retesting. So one thing that we have, having the Institute of Aviation, is at Parkland College we are an FAA testing site, which allows us to be able to actually train and test anyone that would like to be a commercial UAS operator. And that is one thing that we've added into our curriculum as well. So all of our students that are in the Precision Ag program, just as an example, when they walk out the door, they have their UAS Part 107 commercial drone applicator license. So we're trying to work on that and continue to grow that as long as the industry supports it. And we're looking at it from not only from a ag standpoint, of course that's what I'm going to push, but we work with our land survey, we work with our construction, we have a lot of different industries. So it's kind of using ag as an avenue to come in, but we also expand that out. So I hope that's what you were looking for from Parkland. So if you're interested or needing more information, just please let me know.
Along those lines, I do think it's important to note and I get this question often about why aren't there more women in tech? Or why aren't there this in tech and whatever? And I say, well, because if you're only thinking of tech as a bunch of computer scientists, then yeah, there's not going to be enough of X or Y or Z in tech. The reality is that, and kind of you guys have alluded to it, is that ag is wide ranging. It's not just agronomists, it's not just farmers in overalls or whether they wear overalls or not. It's semi-drivers and it's people focused on supply chain and it's drone operators. And so what are some of the other roles in ag that maybe we haven't talked about here tonight that are coming up in your domains that are important to move this forward? Before I pass the microphone, I do want to say that we do have some time to take some questions from the audience. Unfortunately, I can't really see anyone in the audience, so maybe Carly, or if you want to help with that would be great. So other roles in ag that aren't necessarily what we've already talked about.
So this past year, several years, I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, the Women Changing the Face of Ag. Are you familiar with that? Okay, so Women Changing the Face of Ag is an event that is put on every year. Last year it was hosted at University of Illinois, and it draws probably about 800 or 900 females across the state. And when they come to, we have a booth and we always talk, and when they come in, we ask them what they want to do. They're at Women Changing the Face of Ag. And we get, I want to be a beautician. I want to be a doctor. I want to be, they never say they want to do agriculture. They never see that as a viable career. I get asked all the time, hey, what can we do to get more women in? And I say, I don't know. I'm a female and I can't even recruit females. I don't know what to do. And so I've got a classroom full of boys, which I'll refrain from saying what I think, but I have very few females in there. And I think when we think about it, I don't want to be stereotypical because I am a female, but I think we need to also push from the standpoint of you can be an accountant and work for an ag company. You can be in finance. You can do the programming because we're making apps. I mean, there's other things besides farming. Now, I change my boots to cleaner ones, but I like to wear boots. I like to be out in the field. That's something I enjoy, and that may not be for every female that comes up. So, I mean, that's just something that we have to, make sure that they understand that they can still work for an ag company and work in HR. They can still, I mean, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but I mean, to get them in, and you said you have some folks that come in that don't have an ag background, so you're training them. We try to encourage young ladies that that's okay. Come on in and see what it is. And we've got several females that have come into our programs in our ag biz. And they've taken a precision ag class and they like it. They like the technology, so they switch. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm a female in a leading role at Parkland within our ag program, but I don't know how to get them interested in that. Just keep pushing the message, I guess. Do you have many in your program?
I have one daughter and 3 sons, so I'm learning still. But, and they're very different, all of them. But I ask this question of my students, and there's roughly about 40% female students in our class. They do have a slightly different mentality. They're not the gearheads. They don't wear the green cap, right? They're different. But where they are coming from is they're more motivated by the sustainability angle. They're more motivated by the food choices angle. They're more motivated by those kinds of things. And so we need to create those opportunities that they can engage with their passion in those areas. I think I don't know of any other female CCA other than you, and we just met today. So we have a huge dearth of people who can actually presence a lot of these face-to-face jobs. And yes, I mean, it's not because we aren't producing those graduates. One of my students, Daniela, she works for the John Deere's robotic autonomous grass mowing machine, right? And so that's so it's not that there's no women in tech, and there's some really great women in tech. But unless we create the kinds of opportunities where they can feel safe and where they can engage their passions, we probably won't create the right environment to bring them in, to draw them in, right? And so part of it is on us. And as a community, that's kind of what we need to just talk about, I suppose.
Yeah, I think all the critical functions that would exist in any other business are available in ag companies and in agriculture, but it's just not a top of mind thing to think of that industry all the time. I think one unique area that is probably going to grow a lot in agriculture, and it's going to grow a lot here in town at the University of Illinois, is design and product and design. That is a function that at Granular we have product managers who sit in between the engineering function and the feedback of customer success. And of course there's all kinds of ideas, but product development is very expensive. It takes a long time. How do you distill it down to the essence of what's going to be the most valuable thing to do or build or code? In that area, I think it's mostly a software thing. It certainly exists at machinery companies as well, or other parts of the industry, but bringing some of the ease of use and design to anything a farmer would buy or purchase, I think would be a great value, and is probably a growth industry. On the other side, just pure, I think no one in town, Parkland might have a few classes, but really pure sales. I think when you look at the Bay Area, it attracts just as many folks who want to be in business development and sales, and there's very defined career paths along that route that I don't think we have perfectly in existence in Champaign. I think maybe Chicago might have a little bit of it, but having some of the hard, old, classic sales routes that we value at our company, I think a lot of agriculture technology and other companies are starting to see how to inform the masses of new technologies and get them to look critically at that.
So to kind of play off your design angle, one of the unique things we have found in Research Park is actually, it all stems back for me to ag education, but getting these students in as interns and kind of showing them what agriculture has to offer. We hired an industrial design student full-time after she had interned with us for about 8 months. She was from Seattle, had zero ag background, and was an Asian American female. And to say that was probably a first for our organization would not be an understatement. She is wildly different than anyone we possess in our organization, and she definitely brings us that design perspective from design thinking and really user experience, whether it's how does a farmer feel in the cab of this tractor, or how does the farmer feel using this controller that's in his hog barn. She really brings a different perspective that no one else can in our organization, and it's been interesting to see how the rest of our business has reacted to her, because she is very different, and she is kind of like new tech in the ag industry. So it is one of those things that I think, kind of off of what Landon said, a design piece in agriculture is going to be something that I think a lot of women can bring to it. High attention to detail, a lot of attention to the care and how it emotionally or physically impacts people is a really big piece of it too, especially when you're spending 12 hours a day driving back and forth at times.
So do we have any questions out there now that I can see better? Just yell it out. There you go. I see you in the...
Yeah, I got a question for Kaustubh. I was wondering, corn and soybean farmers rely so much on that production that they produce going to protein production, pigs, China, etc. Obviously there is those Petri dish meat companies that are coming together. What's your thoughts on that industry, and how do you see that maybe affecting, again, the Midwest and the corn and soybean farms?
So if you look at Beyond Meat, I think most of their product is made with beans. So we're good there, right? But I think, that's another trend that is building up. A lot of very important people are putting their money behind Beyond Meat and those kinds of companies. I've had some of it. It's not so bad, right? I still like my bacon, but you know, I think it will add to the diversity of our cuisine. Think about avocados. Nobody ate avocados 7 years ago, 8 years ago, right? People had to figure out how to eat them when they saw them in the grocery store. And today we can buy guacamole everywhere, right? There has been a cuisine change, and that's not going to be the only one, nor the last one. I think we will have the ability to source globally. I mean, transportation is so efficient these days. We are already doing that with our blueberries and our strawberries. These things don't grow here. So I think there'll be a lot more fluid movement of materials across nations and across places. And I foresee a world of abundance where we're not going to be hurting our bean farmers or our pork farmers because they're nobody's eating, real meat anymore or whatever. But I see that just as adding one more thing to our cuisine and our diets.
So it's kind of a well-kept secret at GSI, but we actually have two main protein brands, is what we call them. We produce equipment that's for swine and poultry production farms. So actually we call it the meatless meat movement, is something we have actually been paying pretty close attention to in our office here in Champaign. It is quite interesting, like you said, there's a lot of corporate businesses that are investing funds, and when you start to ask yourself, why is Tyson, the leading producer of chicken, investing in meatless meat? Are they hedging their risk, or are they genuinely interested? We'll see. But like you say, as the global average income rises around the world, you're going to have more people who are eating meat, and whether or not that is going to offset the amount of people who are now going to be moving away from traditional meat products to plant-based or cell-cultured petri dish meat, it's only going to take a little bit of time to tell, but it is going to have an impact on the rest of the supply chain in agriculture, and I'm not sure, I definitely am not intelligent enough to predict what that will be at this point, so.
Other questions, comments? Shy group out there. Oh, Tom has a question, okay. Okay, great.
So we talked a lot about productivity and trying to help growers be more profitable and the need for 2 billion more people and 4 times more protein. And so I think this is, a big issue for AgTech is kind of balancing this. I foresee a future where if you're not a household pet, or you're not livestock, chicken, pigs, there's basically going to be no other animals on the planet. Just if you look at what's the trend is. So what can the ag technology sector do? Maybe it's all about efficiency or trying to produce more with less. But how can we, at the same time, we're trying to feed 2 billion more people? How can we have less of an impact, a negative impact, on the environment?
Tom is a cynical investor. Yes. Who wants to take that one? Kaustubh, I'm going to make you.
What fewer animals will there be?
Well, if you look at the numbers right now, we've lost 60% of the wildlife in the world over the course of the last 40 years or so. And you continue, but meanwhile, we're growing way more cattle and chickens and pigs. The lines are kind of heading in pretty clear directions. Mm-hmm. Is there a way that we can kind of preserve nature and the environment at the same time we're trying to feed 2 billion more people?
Yeah, I think so. I think the 2050 9 billion feed the world. It's a very large drumbeat of agriculture to. Sometimes it's an excuse to just keep on keeping on, and let us do our thing. We're at 7.7 billion now. The forecasts are 9. That's a 20% growth. We've doubled population the prior 30 years. So certainly protein is a factor, but I think the 2050 9 billion, it's a little Malthusian. Oh, the world's going to end. We're going to run out of resources. We've always innovated at a faster rate, and the ability to feed the world is probably trapped in food waste and different financial and economic policy factors. So I think, I do think if you look at, we shifted a lot of corn acres to ethanol in the 2000 to 2012 range, and I think the size of 5 or 6 Iowas came online to catch up with the demands of ethanol, and it was a lot of marginal ground. Ground, I think, in the Ukraine that even if it has better seeds, some of the better technologies, pesticides that could double or triple yields over there. There's a lot of more recent forecasts and studies I've read that we will be fine. I think we can use some of the things a lot of the major agriculture corporations are working on to make it more efficient to make the commodity crops, which allows for some of the first world problems we have of wanting organic or sustainable and looking at what that means. We'll be able to do that and feed the world with what we have, probably taking acreage out. And then, once we get to 9 billion, the population replacement rate goes down, and really the numbers after that are kind of flat. So I think we'll solve some of those, certainly with AgTech.
So, Tom, I think the short answer is we can't really change that trend a whole lot, because we here in the US aren't going to eat that differently. But the rest of the world, there's a whole third of the world that's actually growing in prosperity far more rapidly, and their needs right now are they want to eat more chicken. So I think there's very little, if we don't produce that chicken, they'll find ways to produce it. I don't think that that's going to be in our hands necessarily as players in the ag tech space. Though I think what we can do is, I think one of the biggest things you mentioned was these policy level things. I'm perfectly confident we can produce the food for 11 billion, right? I'm one of those guys who thinks that population graph going this way is actually the optimistic scenario. That's the pessimistic one. That means we don't have people to sell our products to, right? And this means that mothers are getting enough calories to produce more babies. That's good. We need someone to put in our retirement accounts, right? So I think that to me, and this is we've been talking to some UN people and so on, and they mix that increasing population trend with the idea that we can't feed the world, but I think if that's what's happening, we're actually feeding the world, and that's good. I personally think that we should be going as fast as possible to a world of abundance rather than a world of sort of misery and then trying to feed less things or whatever. I really think that that's the better future for us. So I'm totally of the opinion, let's push it, and if we run out of this planet, let's find space flight and let's go somewhere else, right?
One more question.
It's my observation in the precision ag community and the farming community that in spite of all the advances we're making in technology, the way a farmer can have fewer people, grow more crop, perhaps spend less money on chemicals, at the end of the day, at the end of the decade, they're still not really any more profitable on a per acre basis than they ever have been. I can go back 40 years, 50 years when I was growing up. My farm friends had 600 acres, and that more than took care of their entire family as an income. Now I think in the Midwest, you're probably looking at 1,500 acres to feed that same one family. I kind of coined the term that farming is really a relative business. If you don't keep up with the technologies, you're going to be left behind, and eventually you'll be out of business. So the sad reality is we're going to grow more food, but the farmers aren't going to come out any better relatively than they are right now or they were 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I'm curious what your all thoughts on that.
So that's true. And in fact, farmers haven't made money since the 60s. Farm income has been flat since the 60s. And the past 4 years, for sure, they've put more money out than they've made from sales of product. That is an extremely sharp reality. So now, to give you a sense of how late how advanced this problem is, the number of banks going out of business in rural America is like 2,000 right now. Okay, they're seeing 20x increases in their default rates because farmers can't pay money. This is not a canary in the coal mine. This is a metastasized disease. We're quite late on that. And I think that's really one of the things that we need to be solving. That it's true. it is true, and this is why, it's very hard to sell something to a grower. They haven't made any money for the last 3 years. How are we going to ask them another $3 an acre?
Yeah, it's a super competitive industry, just like anything else, and you have to innovate and grow your business kind of just to keep up and be profitable.
It's innovate to survive.
Yeah. Yep.
So on that note, we will transition from needing to survive and the global wildlife population back to what makes this place magic when it comes to AgTech. So I'm curious, and I'm asking this to all of you, is in what ways can Champaign-Urbana continue to distinguish itself from other AgTech hubs and as a place where we want more people to join us in these ventures? So I will direct that to all of you, but I think I'm going to pick on Lena first.
So I think one of the things I see, aside from the general landscape of the areas, we already have a pretty solid foundation of agriculture companies in the area. It's actually really unique in Research Park. Like you say, we're not all best friends, but we all collaborate in the sense you have Caterpillar and John Deere and AGCO that all live in the same ecosystem, and there's a lot of other competitive landscapes there, but the reality is we all bring value to each other in perspective, and there is strength in numbers, and if we can continue to attract additional agriculture companies to the area, it just continues to kind of progress all of our operations as well. I think that the university's extensive knowledge in whether it's ag engineering, they have one of the best animal sciences departments in the country as well, is something we really benefit from. But then also, those are kind of our traditional recruiting lines that help us, but trying to make those conversions from the computer engineering, computer science departments is something we see a lot of value in too. But for me, it's really the community that we've built here so far of the agriculture companies that we have in Research Park.
I would say from our perspective, sometimes we think that Parkland is the best kept secret. And so I would say that continued collaboration amongst all of us up here, working together, and just keep pushing that out there and don't be the best kept secret, and see how we grow and see how we work together.
Is this the last question? Okay, so I think we really need to thank Research Park for the kind of stuff they're doing. Not that I know every AgTech park out there, but this is truly unique. Friday evening, we're talking about ag. This is awesome. This is truly good. I mean, we really want to move towards that 500,000 jobs per year in this ecosystem kind of space, and it will not be possible unless there was this catalysis where they're bringing in lots of different companies. And so it's not ag with overalls, but you can go look at a wide variety of different startups and Fortune 500 companies in this space that are trying to make a better planet. And I think that's the thing that we need to keep driving, and you guys are doing a wonderful job already doing that.
Yeah, I think we've collected, there's a large presence of the major agriculture company logos. I think we have a few food companies. Increasing the different sectors that we recruit and go after to diversify the ag tech we have, I think will be important. And then looking at kind of the smaller scale, left side of the dog bone opportunities for the 1, 2, 5, 10 person ideas that can really find their niche, and fostering that to a greater degree, I think will be, we're doing it now and continuing to do it.
Well, thank you all so much. I do want to give a shout out to all of you for being up here tonight and giving your opinions very openly and honestly about what is happening, what our challenges are here in our community, but also broadly in this sector. Do want to give another shout out to our friends at Pygmalion, the city of Champaign, the EDC for hosting our happy hours. So thank you to the Champaign County Economic Development Corporation, which has also been very much a part of pushing forward AgTech as a part of the fabric of our community. Along those lines, I do want you to know that, again, this is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. We do have, of course, the AgTech Summit coming up here, but expect more. So this is, when we started the AgTech Summit 4 years ago, it was sort of, we think that this is happening, we see it happening, and we want to move it forward. And now 4 years later, we're really seeing not just the fruits of those efforts, but the fruits of a lot of efforts around the area of collaboration across our communities. So we encourage you to get involved. We encourage you to reach out. One of the things that really makes this place magic, and Lena alluded to it, is the community that we've developed here, is the fact that you can jump right in. You can meet other people, maybe even in companies that are doing similar things to you, whether that's in machines or data or whatnot. So thank you all for coming here tonight. We're really excited to have a great turnout, and I think many of us will stick around for a while, but thanks again and have a great weekend.